Surfing the World Wide Web. Yeah. All right, I'm going to get started here, everybody. I'm Morgan Linton. I am not a pro surfer. I am looking forward to learning how to surf tomorrow, though. For those of you who don't know me, I've been buying and selling domain names for 12 years now. 7 years ago, I started a software company called Bold Metrics. We're a venture-backed software as a service company based in San Francisco, California. And something that's been really interesting for me, going from domaining to running a software company and still domaining, because domaining is just a part of life, is the things that I've learned from our business that actually apply to the domain name world. And a lot of times, it ends up being either software tools or techniques that I go, oh, this would be so good for the domain business. And so I think this is a topic that hopefully is relevant to pretty much everybody in the room. Before I kind of dive into this, though, I'm interested to understand how many people in this room do buy and sell domain names? Raise your hand. Okay, good amount of people. So this should be really relevant for you. Also, my speaking style is very freeform. So if you have a question, like as I'm talking through this, just yell it out. We'll do a Q&A at the end, but I'm fine if there's something that's like on your mind. Oh, wait, that guy in the back.
Why are you so freeform?
Why am I so freeform? Well, that's a very hard question to answer. I was born like this. I don't know.
Why are you afraid of sharks?
Who here is, raise your hand if you're not afraid of sharks. Okay. All right. You're going to go surfing first tomorrow. So yeah, if you have a question, you can just blurt it out as I'm talking. I can keep my train of thought. It's fine. It's not going to distract me. And then I have Q&A at the end, and we can talk about whatever else questions you have. But I'm going to talk about using tools to better track your domain sales funnel, or kind of better put, why you can do better than Excel. So here's how most domain investors manage their sales funnel. Well, okay, that's not really true. Here's how most domain investors manage their sales funnel. They don't. Most domain investors get inbound inquiries, maybe send outbound, and it kind of happens in the moment. And so then, maybe comes time for something like this, where you have domains that end up in the auction, and you go, you know what, I should reach out to the people that have put in offers on my domains. And you have to go like searching through your inbox and find the people and highlight their names and copy and paste. And it's a very manual process, and in the end, you end up kind of missing out on a lot of potential opportunities. And let me ask another question here. How many of you manage your domain sales funnel using Excel? Okay, not a lot of people. How many of you manage your domain sales funnel just using your noggin in your head? Okay, only one person. Okay. How many people use a CRM like Salesforce? All right, a few people. Cool. All right, well, I'm excited to talk to you about this. So, who cares? Why manage your sales funnel? Why do you need to do it? Number of different reasons. First off, a potential buyer that doesn't have a budget today may have the budget a year from now or 6 months from now. You never know how people's lives change. People come into money and suddenly it's like, there's a domain I really wanted to get, and now I finally have the budget for it. But maybe they don't act right away. Maybe the first thing they want to do is buy a boat. But if you happen to reach out to them on a somewhat regular basis, keep it top of mind, that may actually be the first thing they think of. And then keeping track of those past inquiries and actually nurturing those leads is really part of any healthy sales process. And as domain investors, we should all be looking at this as, anyone that makes an offer on a domain, even if it starts as a low offer, you have no idea what that could turn into. And I'm always amazed, whether it's myself or other people I know in the industry, finding someone that made a $100 offer on a domain that ends up buying it for $2,500 a year later. And at the time, they didn't have the budget, but then time passes and they do have the budget. Not keeping track of your sales data, or using a clunky solution like Excel does mean that opportunities will fall through the cracks. If you're not currently using something to manage this, you are missing out on potential sales. And last but not least, you should know the KPIs of your business. If you're running a business, you should know, what percent of my names do I sell? What percent of inquiries convert? What platforms convert the best for me? And there's a lot of ways you can keep track of this data without having to kind of keep in the back of your mind. All right, but what's wrong with Excel? We love Excel, right? Microsoft is amazing software. All their software just works perfectly. It's trash it is, right? Well, Excel's okay, all right? I mean, it's just good for keeping track of tabular data. It's not good for keeping track of data that's constantly changing. I don't know if anyone here is like a master of pivot tables, but those aren't incredibly fun to build and keep track of. And so, if you have multiple inquiries on a domain name from the same person, from different people, you're trying to keep track of how the price is changing, maybe they brought a business partner in, it's very hard to use Excel to create a cohesive picture of that history and to easily even look back on that. And then everything you do in Excel is manual. And so there's no way for me to tell Excel, okay, hey, here's someone that made an offer on a domain a year ago and they offered $100 and now they came back a year later and it was $500 and then we've had 10 emails in between and I want to have you keep track of all those emails and keep it connected to that record. You would have to just copy and paste a bunch of things. So keeping track of less data, struggling to keep things organized means that you're not going to be able to see the opportunities that are available to you now or in the future. Doesn't mean you won't sell domains. Of course, you'll still sell domains. But this allows you to really optimize the opportunities you have and keep a real sales funnel, which you should be doing if you're selling things. So it's time for an upgrade, and I wanted to give a talk today that's actionable. Something where, some of my favorite talks are talks where I leave the talk and I'm like, oh, I can go do that now. And so I want to give you guys the tools to be able to actually leave this talk and set up, build, track your sales funnel for your domain business. And so most people that run a sales organization use something called a CRM. And a few people raise their hand for Salesforce. Most people in here, it seems, do not use a specific tool to manage this, so I think this will be really relevant. And a CRM is built for, it's customer relationship management, for managing relationships, for managing how that changes over time. Couple this with email integration, and a CRM can provide everything related to a specific deal. So you can actually look, you get an offer on a name, and you've had, offers on it over the years, but you can't really remember how many you've had, and you can, in a minute, know, oh, okay, on this name, I've had 20 offers over the last 4 years. 80% of those offers have been from the US, 10% from Europe, 10% from Asia. Here's the average offer price I've had. Here's the last person that put in the highest offer. You instantly have access to that data. So then, suppose an offer comes in and you go, I'm trying to remember what was happening with that domain. In a minute, you can get all that information. And then if you hop on the phone with the prospective buyer, you're now going to have a ton of data. Or, oh, well, actually, here's what's happened in the past. And okay, here's what I'm thinking. And all of that is really useful when you're trying to negotiate a deal. And then CRMs provide really nice dashboards, so you can see a snapshot of your KPIs. You're not having to create pivot tables or calculations or things like that to try to figure out what percent of my portfolio do I sell, or how many offers on average do I have to look at before I get an actual deal. And it's Frank was talking about this yesterday. I think someone brought up a point of I think the brokers there, and don't quote me on it, but I think this is right, send 2,000 emails per domain sold. I can tell you they are certainly not keeping track of that in Excel. That would be very complicated to keep track of it. They have a dashboard, they have their own tools, and they can tell instantly oh yeah, okay, here's how many names we've sold this month, here's how many emails we've sent in order to sell those names. And so they have, they keep incredibly detailed track of everything they're doing in their business, so they know their metrics and they know if they're doing better or worse from one month to the next, if one technique works or another doesn't. So this also allows you to test if you're moving in the right direction or the wrong direction. So maybe you've been responding to offers for the last 5 years by just saying sorry, take a hike. And you decide somebody maybe I'll be nicer today. And instead of saying take a hike, I'll say, hey, sorry, your offer's a bit far off from what I'm looking for, but if you could raise your budget, that would be great. And you do that for 6 months. Well, then in a CRM, you can actually compare out. How did the responses I gave before compared to the responses I gave now, how did that impact my actual sell-through rate? And that data will just be there. You don't have to program it in, it'll be there. So now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, cool, Morgan's going to talk about Salesforce. Salesforce is pretty popular. Salesforce Tower, the tallest building in San Francisco. And Salesforce is a beast. You can customize the heck out of it. You can have thousands of people using it, all within your company if you wanted to. But it's a little complicated, and it's really not exactly the perfect solution. For those of you that are using it, I'm sure you're getting a lot of value out of it. You probably have used it in a past life, so you know how to set it up and configure it and tweak it. How many of you have customized Salesforce in the past life or the current life? Raise your hand. Okay, 3 people, 4 people, okay. So, it really is overkill unless you're running a large organization. As an individual domain investor or someone that's running a small team, you really do need, if you really want to customize it, it's usually helpful to get a Salesforce expert that can go in and really customize things and get it right and run the upgrades and add plugins and stuff like that. And it can get pretty expensive quickly, and to get a lot of the advanced features, you do need to add add-ons and plugins and things like that. So, I'm going to talk about Pipedrive. How many of you have heard of Pipedrive? Oh, cool, wow. They would be very happy to know that. So Pipedrive right now, essentially next to Salesforce, is the fastest growing CRM in the world. They should do over $80 million in revenue this year. They're funded by some of the biggest venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, like Bessemer Ventures, which is, I believe, the biggest Silicon Valley fund. I believe it's a $3 billion fund. If I'm saying this right, you guys can look it up and tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe Bessemer is actually one of the only firms that's bigger than Andreessen Horowitz. They're a massive firm. They're the main backer of Pipedrive. Pipedrive is growing like crazy, actually. Most of the team is based in Europe. Now they have a ton of people in the US. But it's easy to use. It's easy to set up. You don't have to be a CRM expert to use it. And then one of my favorite things is it instantly connects to whatever email you're using. I think most people are probably using Gmail. It instantly connects to that and keeps track of all of that data. And so then, you get, say 100 inquiries on a domain over a few years, and now somebody makes an offer and you're gonna get ready to give them a call and you wanna kind of look back on all of that. You can click on that domain and get all the data, look at all your past emails, everything up in a dashboard view. Super easy to set up, and it's cheap. It costs about $20 a month. So I'm going to walk you through how to do this. Like I said, I'm really interested in talking about things that are actionable, where you can leave and go, oh, cool, I can do that myself now. So literally, you can download Pipedrive today. You can get a free trial. I don't work for Pipedrive, I'm making money about this. I just think it's a really cool, easy to use tool. But you could literally start tracking your sales funnel in Pipedrive today. I'm going to walk you through exactly the steps that you would need to do this, and specifically how to customize it for domain investing and a sales funnel for domain names. So, let's walk through it. When you first log into Pipedrive, this is what you'll see. You'll see your name up there, and you'll see this thing. This is often considered a Kanban board. And a Kanban board is essentially something where you have a kind of headline here, and then you can put usually what's considered cards here, and then you can move them through, in this case, your sales funnel. So let's talk about customizing your pipeline stages. Essentially what you'll do is you'll go to the top menu here and you'll click New Pipeline. And if anybody wants these slides, or even just this exact walk that I can provide you, so you don't have to take pictures of each slide if you really want to, but you'll essentially go up here into Pipeline and you'll hit New Pipeline. And then this is where you can actually name the different stages of your pipeline and set the percentages. And so here, first part here is like inbound offer, right? You get an offer in, and I consider when somebody makes an inbound offer, it's probably less than this probability, but I'll be optimistic and say, okay, there's a 1% chance you're going to sell that domain when you get an inbound offer. So then what's the first thing you usually do, and why do you lose the 99%? They don't have the budget, right? They are giving you an offer of, $10 for a domain that you want to sell for $10,000. And so first thing you're doing is checking, do they actually have the budget? And so if they actually have the budget, well, I consider the probability goes up quite a bit, maybe to 10%. And obviously you can set this up based on what works for you in your portfolio. It's very different, right? If you're selling names in the 6-figure range or the 5-figure range or the 4-figure range or the 3-figure range, is totally different sales velocity. But in this case, I could say, okay, well, there's a 10% probability if I find out that they have a budget that's within the range. Maybe I respond back to them and they say, well, I'm giving you a $100 offer, and I go, that's too low. could you raise your budget? I'm thinking of something in the $1,000 to $2,000 range, and they respond and go, I could possibly get there. It's like, okay, budget could be in range here. Next thing is negotiating the price. So then I think the probability goes up more. Okay, 20%. And now, okay, buyers agreed to the price. Well, still not much more than 50%, because as we all know, sales can fall apart like at any point in time. You can think that you're about to close a deal, and the person's like, yeah, that sounds great. And then you email them back, and you're like, cool, like, let's do this at escrow now. And it's like, oh, you never hear back from them again. And the sale just dematerializes, you don't know where they went. And then a year later, like, hey, I still want to buy that name. And like, I already sold it. And then send to escrow. I don't even give this. You should never have, by the way, anything in your sales funnel where the probability is 100%. And I actually believe you really shouldn't have anything in your funnel where the probability is higher than 90%, because it's probably unrealistic. And the reason why you want to have these percentages somewhat accurate and continue to hone them over time is this is where you're going to get your KPIs out in Pipedrive that will automatically calculate. And so over time, you'll start to be able to calculate the percent chance a deal will close, and it'll calculate the actual dollar value of your deals in aggregate across everything you have in the pipeline. And so I say, okay, 75% chance. Once it goes to escrow, yeah, pretty likely, but I'm sure all of us have had experiences where someone said, yeah, I want to do it, great, send it to escrow, and you send it to escrow, and then the person doesn't sign in, you're like, hey, sign in to like accept the transaction, and they never email again, the deal falls apart. So you essentially go through each one of these, you name it. So I gave this the name, negotiating price, I gave this the probability. I won't get into deal rotting, but if anybody wants to understand deal rotting and how that works, you can talk to me after, or read about it on the Pipedrive site. Then what you want to do is add custom fields, because you're selling domain names, so you want some things that are more specific to domain names. And so here's where, it's totally up to you what fields you want to add. The top fields I recommend adding are domain name. Do not forget that field. It will not be very useful if you don't have that field in Pipedrive. Your bin price, sometimes it's hard to remember what idea you had in mind for a bin price, and also, this is even more important, what price you told other people. So if you've had 10 offers on a domain name and every single person you're quoting $2,500, and now you're super busy, you're here in Europe, you're getting ready for your surf lesson, you get an offer, and you're like, oh, how much do I want to sell it for? And you offer someone, and you tell someone like, oh, like $5,000, and you're like, oh, wait a second, that person reached out before, and I actually told them $2,500, and wait, what am I doing? Great to have that data in there so you can track if you've changed your bid price over time. Your lowest acceptable price, often called your floor. And then this one's a really important one to add, which is the date the offer was made. So you're able to track that when you look at your KPIs, because one of the things that you may want to understand is, what is my average sales cycle, right, from an offer coming in to closing. And then some additional fields that could be worth adding, original purchase price, domain age, similar sales. This is also something, by the way, I'm a big fan of FD, and you can keep track of some of this stuff in there too, so you can use this and that together and really have a lot of data. So to add a custom field, you'll click that green button that says add field. This is to a deal. The deals are the actual cards that show on that Kanban board. In this case, I'll do, say, like a text flow field. And
what's Kanban?
Kanban is essentially a way of organizing things into cards so that you can move things from one stage to another. And it really started, it's used the most right now by software developers. So there's a solution called GitHub, which everybody knows, and there's a lot of things that will take GitHub and GitHub issues, or Jira and Jira issues, and move it into a Kanban board. So you can say, okay, here's what the developers are working on now, here's what's in progress, here's what's done, here's what's in the backlog. That's typically how it's organized. And Pipedrive is really one of the first companies to take that approach that's mostly used by dev teams and now apply it to sales teams. So now we are able to visualize your sales funnel. That's something that Salesforce isn't great at doing. Like Salesforce, anytime you want to see things visually, you have to run a report, which is pretty clunky. So Kanban helps you visualize, oh, here's how many deals have met budget. Here's how many I'm in negotiations with. Here's how many are in escrow.
Is that short for something?
I don't know. Does anyone here know what Kanban is?
It's Japanese, yeah, and it's pronounced Kanban.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, here we go.
It came out
It's Japanese and it's pronounced Kanban. Okay?
Now that is interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you could name the field domain name, and that's how you create those custom fields. This is absolutely one of the coolest features. In Pipedrive, you have to have a gold account. I think a gold account costs $29 a month. It's really not expensive to use Pipedrive. And so essentially you'll hit connect to your email, and then you'll connect to, imagine most people use Gmail, you connect to Gmail, and now when you add a new contact or a new organization into Pipedrive and you're emailing back and forth with them, you don't have to do anything. It automatically catalogs those emails, and you can send emails directly from Pipedrive if you want, but you don't have to. So you could be in Pipedrive, and maybe your process is every morning you log into Pipedrive, you look where your deals are, anything that's in negotiation that you haven't heard back from in the last 7 days, you follow up with, and you may have your own system for doing this. And all of those emails will be tracked and will be assigned to that specific deal. So now a potential buyer calls you out of the blue, and you're like, oh boy, I don't remember, I haven't talked to this guy for a few months. He's like, oh, I want to follow up on such and such name. You could pop into Pipedrive, look, instantly see all the emails you've had, instantly understand how's their offer price and different things changed over time, and have access to all that data. It's incredibly easy. You just click connect your email, it connects your email. So here you see, just put your email address. And then, you're probably going to want to get started by adding your past deals or adding current deals. And so you're going to add a person. So, you put their name, phone number, email address. It's really important to have this email address in here because that's how it's going to actually track those conversations and keep them connected to that specific profile. And then if you want to track at the organization level, you can. Sometimes as domain investors, we know the organization they're associated with, sometimes we don't. This is another big downside to Salesforce. For people that use Salesforce, you have to have somebody attached to an organization. Someone has to have a first and last name. You do not have, that requirement does not exist in Pipedrive. It's very weird that Salesforce still requires that, and there's really no way to undo it unless you have a developer go in and change the underlying code in your Salesforce implementation. And so just make sure you have email in there and at least some data in there, that's all you need. And then you'll create the deal. So the deal, a lot of times, you're gonna assign it to that person and you'll pull that from that record. And then, you may decide you wanna call their name or the domain name itself, and then you'll assign it a value based on usually what you plan to sell the domain name for. And then you can decide, you can have multiple pipelines, so maybe you want to have an inbound pipeline and an outbound pipeline. You may want to have a .com pipeline and a non.com pipeline. You can really break it down however you want. And some of these, sometimes it will make sense to create multiple pipelines because, as we all know, .com domains have a lot more sales velocity, sell for a higher price than say another TLD, and there may be a different sales velocity as well. And so you can create different pipelines that have different percentages going from one stage to the other. And then you can decide what stage it goes into, because maybe somebody calls you out of the blue and on the phone call you are able to verify their budget and begin negotiations. So maybe it doesn't just start in that inbound receive stage, maybe it starts directly in the negotiation stage. And then that will pull the deal probability from that. And so it essentially will multiply the deal probability by the deal value, take the aggregate of all of those deals and let you know, oh, here's what you're forecasted to do. And then based on your close date, here's what you're forecasted to do this month, next month. We'll actually create your forecast for you based on the current deals you have in the pipeline. And then you're just going to update deals over time in your Kanban? Michael, is Kanban? Okay, Kanban. So I've been saying Kanban forever. It's like the very American way to say it.
You've been wrong.
Yeah, I know, for quite a while, huh? So essentially, the really neat thing about Pipedrive is, so I get my inbound offer and I make the card for the deal, I make the person, I make the deal, I put it here. Now, I go back and forth with the buyer and I realize, oh cool, their budget's in range, move the card over here. Keep moving it. The really cool thing is as you're moving it, Pipedrive is keeping track of how much time did it take you to go from one stage to another. So then you use this for a year or two and you can look back and go, oh, on average, how long does it take me to get from an inbound offer to someone that has a budget in range? What percent of my deals that come through inbound for my .coms have a budget in range? And how long does it take to go from budget in range to negotiating price? And as this gets more data, you actually have more predictability in your funnel. And then you're able to track things like phone calls, meetings, things like that. So, maybe I had a call with a buyer and said, call with a buyer, they need to talk to their business partner about raising their offer, plan to follow up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, what I really like about Pipedrive is very actionable. And so what it does is, any activity that you put into Pipedrive, it always prompts you to add the next activity. What's the next thing you need to do? Because really sales is all about continuing to follow up and nurturing. And so in this case, I put in here, I had the call with the buyer. The second I save this, it's going to go, okay, what's the next activity, right? It's like, okay, well, they said they're going to talk to their business partner, and I said to them, okay, how long do you think they'll take? Let's say, a couple weeks. Okay, maybe I'll have a follow-up in here, and so I could have a task to, hey, follow up with buyer about their business partner. Because when you have 20 different deals going on at once, it's easy to get them all confused. Now what I can do is when I go into Pipedrive, it's actually going to remind me. And so every day, all I have to do is log into Pipedrive, and it says, okay, Morgan, here's what you need to do today. Follow up with this person, call this person back, ping this person you haven't heard back from. Because every time I take an action, I have my next step right there in Pipedrive. So what's next? Here's a few ideas to maximize your domain's sale funnel. Email everyone's made an offer on your domain name in the past. If it goes to auction, if anyone has a domain name that was in the auction yesterday that did not sell and is now going into the extended auction, now is a great time to go through those past offers and ping those people and go, hey, by the way, I have a domain in auction. Here's a link to it. If you're using Pipedrive, really easy to do that. I think they're going to send an email to every single person that's made an offer on a domain from Pipedrive in like 30 seconds. If you want to sell it in faster and you want to lower a price, you can send an email to every past prospect saying, hey, price change, and see who responds to that. And then you can use their dashboard and their analytics to understand trends in your sales process, like when deals go through, when do they not, what stage do they get stuck in, are you pricing things right, how does the sales funnel change from com to non.com to oneword.com to twoword.com. You can really slice and dice this and let Pipedrive do all the heavy lifting and all the calculations so that you can actually take action and use that data. So I've got a couple minutes for Q&A. So yeah, let me know how many questions do you have. James.
Yeah, I've actually got a recommendation.
Yeah.
I also use Pipedrive.
Oh, cool.
And there's actually a plugin called Plenty.
Yeah.
And this basically automates the email process. So you can actually set up a drip email campaign.
Cool.
So you can set up like 4 or 5 different stages. And then based on the responses of this drip email campaign, it can then put the lead, and you can put the response into a lead basically.
Oh, very cool. What's that called?
Plenty.
Cleansing.
Plenty.
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 Boy,
Yeah.
if they owned the .com, I couldn't find it. They need some naming help, you guys. Cool, thank you. Jason.
So I use a lot of sales pipelines because I'm reaching out as a broker all day long.
Yeah.
So I use a lot of different tools as well,
Yeah.
and have experimented with a bunch. I played around with Pipedrive. It seems very similar. I wanted to ask you if you have any experience with Google Streak boxes, because it's all within the Google.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave your mailbox at all. Are there any benefits of Pipedrive? What are the benefits of one over the other, and how do they compare?
It's a good question. So at a high level, I would say, Google's kind of famous for making like somewhat half-baked products, or like good but not great because they lack some focus. I would say that the core difference is not that you can't do a lot of the things that you can in Pipedrive with it, but Pipedrive is like a dedicated company just doing this. And so a lot of the things, kind of like James mentioned with like plugin support and stuff like that, far surpasses what Google has. So that's probably the main advantage. So you can probably do the same at kind of a surface level with both, but as you go deeper, Pipedrive will have a lot more depth.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Yes, Karin.
Yes.
Oh.
With the mic.
Okay. I can still hear.
So, would you know, since Pipedrive integrates with your email, would you know how it works with sort of the automated emails that you get from like a platform like Zero or Afternic?
Sure.
Can it just like parse those and take the amount of the offer and then just sort of, or do you have to manually create?
That's a really good question. So I'm guessing there's probably a plugin that wouldn't be able to do it right out of the box, but Pipedrive does have a pretty good plugin library that's growing a lot, and probably is something that could do that, where you could have, it auto read that email and then have a set of rules to do that. That's a great question, actually. It's something I would like to research, because if you are using a platform, you now do have to, I currently manually input this stuff in. I don't have a super high of emails coming in, but if you had like hundreds coming in a day, then that would be pretty laborious. So I would imagine there's a plugin to do that, where you could say, hey, if you see an email that pattern matches from this with the subject, pull this specific number out of it. Yeah, that's a good question.
No, great presentation, Morgan. I have a question about kind of strategically what you think. Like, this assumes the lead comes to us, or emails us or contacts us. Mike Mann's been experimenting with a lot of just direct to the buy page. And that's a very different strategy that I think on domains under 100,000 can save. It can save brokers a lot of time, especially if they're working with a lot of leads. You're having to follow up and spend a lot of time in your email and phone. What do you think about people being able to buy the domain right there from the visit, or do you find that in your experience the follow up kind of back and forth process gets you better results?
That's a good question too. I don't know if I have a strong opinion one way or the other. It would be something that I would probably want to test and then let the data tell me. I think it would really depend on the portfolio, right? It would depend on if it's a, like you said, kind of a sub $100,000. Let's say we're talking about like mostly tour.coms. It'd be interesting to like experiment with that versus like .ios or versus .co or their TLDs and see, okay, do they all operate the same way, or do buyers act differently? And it's probably very price sensitive. Like in some cases, I would say if the bin is south of 5K, you'd probably see greater sales velocity by sending to the page and giving them the offer to buy right away, versus if the bin is 25K or higher, maybe that would be less likely. So I would say the right answer would probably be some kind of a bifurcated approach.
My experience is I've never sold a buy it now name for more than 35 grand, and even then I'm surprised. I think when you get higher than that, they want to have a conversation just because it's a bigger dollar amount. But I think sub 10,000, I think there's a lot of that buy it now. I sell names all the time under 10,000. I never have conversations. So I think it's price sensitive too. I don't agree with Morgan.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody. I really appreciate it. If you get in touch with me,
Thanks, dude. Well done. All right, next up, Pavel. Are you here? There he is. From Internet.bs. He's been in the space for years. How long have you been doing this?
Almost 15 years.